In this video, I'm going to be going over the Smith & Wesson Performance Center Shorty 45. Compact 45 pistol, came out in 1996. Let's go inside. Alright, this right here is a Smith & Wesson Performance Center Shorty 45. It's a limited production run they did in the 90s, around 96. They started making them, and only about 662 of these were made. So 662 of the Shorty 45s were made, and they're part of the third generation of Smith & Wesson. Third generation Smith & Wessons are kind of neat. It was right around the time when they came out with the 10 millimeter, and back then the 45 was considered a true champ. The 9 millimeter got a bad rating back in the day, but this right here has an aluminum frame, which was introduced with the third generation Smith & Wessons, and this is in 45. This one right here is serial number 2 of them, so out of 662 of them, this is the second one that they made. It's a compact pistol, similar to maybe like a Colt Defender or something. Fires double action, single action. 7-round mag capacity, which is pretty good for a compact pistol back in the 90s. Slide lock. Cleared. Has an external extractor, which some people think works good. Came with the Novak sights. Dot sights for front and rear. One of the things that made this really neat was the Briley bushing, which I'll go into this and do a disassembly, but the Briley bushing on here is going to be kind of a neat thing. I don't know how well it'll show on the camera here. But it does have a magazine disconnect, so when the magazine's disconnected, you can't fire it. It is double action and single action, but the hammer is bobbed off the back of it. Safety here acts as a decocker, so if you want to decock it, and it was kind of during that time when people were transitioning from semi-automatics to revolvers and everything. But if you pull it back, I'll show you how it works. If we let the magazine go forward, or the slide go forward, we'll fire, dead trigger, put the magazine in as a magazine disconnect. Now if we pull it back, it's a very light, very, very light double action trigger. And if we rack it, single action trigger, there's a little bit of creep in it, but once you hit that wall, very smooth braking. But the Smith & Wesson Performance Center put an amazing trigger job on this pistol right here. Probably one of the better trigger jobs you'll find for double action, single action, and this was done back in the mid-90s, around 1996. For a size comparison, this right here is a Colt Defender. This one happens to be the 100-year anniversary special that they made, but they're very similar in size. The Colts were single action. The Smith & Wesson has a 3.5 to 3.75 inch barrel, probably about closer to 3.75, but they're both really accurate and really nice compact pistols. Smith & Wesson overall, I think, has an advantage, more so from the Performance Center. The slide on it is just an amazing fit for how it slides back and forth and how that barrel bushing is, and I'll get into that when I do disassembly and show you a little bit about that barrel bushing. And here's the Shorty 45 next to the CQB, which would be considered like a commander-sized pistol. This is their 45 version that Smith & Wesson had. CQB is pretty neat. This one here, this one's also serial number 2. Yeah, kind of neat. Both of them are serial number 2s. But the full-size one, a lot more fun to go out and shoot with. Compact, more for carry and everything. But both of them are very accurate and very well made. The Performance Center back in the 90s did an amazing job on the metal pistols and everything. The Performance Center now with polymer guns, even the revolvers I don't think are good today like they were back when Smith & Wesson was doing all their stuff in the 80s and 90s on the Performance Center side. That's my opinion. Let's go over the disassembly. Drop the magazine. If you want to make sure it's clear, you can do that. Now, with this disassembly of it, you're basically going to line up the notch right here with the slide area. So you can pull it back, get it lined up, and then you're going to push through on the tab part of it once it's lined up like that. This right here will just end up pulling out. I'll show you this real quick if I can. There's a notched angle here. That notched angle kind of helps push it in. I'll show you how it works out, but it's not retained. You don't have to rotate it down like with the Colts and everything else. Slide will come off. Non-captured recoil spring, so you just push it and take it off. Kind of neat back in the day. It does have dual recoil springs on it, so it actually does help quite a bit with the recoil and everything, and it is a full-length guide rod. So the full-length guide rod is neat, and then on this plunger part right here, it actually goes in and has some spring tension to it when it clips in, and it kind of works in conjunction with this piece pushing in to get it to line up, set into place. So there's a method to the madness of how this works, and it's a really neat and good design back in the day. Now for taking the barrel out, if you end up getting one of these, and I don't know how well it shows with the Briley bushing, but there's a titanium bushing setup in here, and it makes for a beautiful fit, real smooth action and everything. But in order to take it out, you got to kind of manipulate it, treat it neatly, but it barely has enough clearance to make it out. And once it makes it out, the barrel's perfectly smooth. It was fitted by a company called Briley in Texas that does shotguns and everything. And the way the bushing works is they have a special tempered steel bushing in here that's coated with titanium nitride. And it's kind of like a puzzle to take out. I'm not going to take it out or anything, but if you push in on the side, it'll rotate to where the gold part's going up and down. Then you want to twist it to where these side pieces are, and then you can pull it out. And then to put it in, you put it in sideways, rotate it, and then twist it and rotate it again. So it's kind of in there like a puzzle, but it gives a really nice and tight barrel to bushing fit. I mean, just amazing how well it locks up. The outer part here, the silver ring part, is fitted in there, and what they do is they thread it and tighten it in there. So it's permanently kind of tightened into here, but it's done through a threading process. And then after the threading process is done on the steel bushing part, then the gold ring is put in and fitted into there. But this was done by Briley in Texas, and all the Smith & Wesson Performance ones they did like this went in there and threaded it. Now they do have these bushings for 1911s that twist in like a traditional 1911, and they're not threaded and part of the barrel assembly or the slide assembly like these ones right here are. Alright, if you're going to put these back together, if you're having trouble getting your barrel in, what you want to do is come from this end with it, put the barrel through, and then tweak it a little bit so that it lines up right. But it is a very tight fit, match, hand done, so it's something the Performance Center did a good job on, and you want to make sure that you're kind of careful and play with it just right when you're putting it back in. And like I said, it'll go in there. It's very smooth, and it's one of those things where there's not a lot of left and right play to it. It makes it to where it just guides and locks everything right into place. It's done to like, I think it's 0.001 or 0.0001 tolerances. So it's a perfect fit, done in-house at Briley. You can order them and try to fit your own and everything, or you can actually ship them there. And I think they still make these bushings and everything. But really neat concept that worked out really well overall. Then put in the spring back in just like you normally would on most systems that have a guide rod. Put it in place, make sure it locks in where it's supposed to. You're going to put it back on the slide. Now this part right here you have to be careful with. You can check marks on the back of here and everything, but it fits on here. This right here slides so smoothly, little to no play. Now on this you got to push down on this part right here to get it in, and then push down again to make sure that it slides on all the way. So everything has to be down, and then you'll get it to where it slides in. But you got to make sure you push down on it. If you look at Smith & Wesson's and the back here is boogered up, it's kind of like the idiot marks that you get on a 1911. You can get them on here if people don't push down and properly reassemble it and everything. And once you get it lined up where you want it to be and everything, you pretty much just push it straight in and you'll get it back together. Smith & Wesson Shorty 5 is pretty neat. The alloy frame on it was neat. The checkering that they did on the front strap was kind of neat for a custom shop thing at the time. The beaver tail. The grips are nice and smooth. They have checkering on them as well, but just amazing. I tried putting a Hogue rubber grip on it, and it's a little bit thicker and just doesn't feel as right. But the plastic grips that came from the factory are really nice. Bob Hammer's pretty good. Magazine safety and everything is neat. The double action, single action is amazing. Like I said, the single action trigger is light, but the double action is just an amazing double action trigger. Single action mode, it's really good too, but it's one of those weapons that I wish they still made. Smith & Wesson Performance Shop was known for some good stuff, and the Shorty 45 that they made was one of those things from the Performance Center that's just an amazing little pistol. If you have one of these, leave a comment down below. If you've ever handled one of these and messed with it, let me know. But I think this is one of the better weapons Smith & Wesson made, and I wish they still made their third generation pistols today. Unfortunately, around 2014, they stopped supporting them, so if something happens to them, they're kind of hard to get parts to replace or fix. You're going to have to find a gunsmith. Hope you enjoyed this video. Cav Cop out.